Hey, podcast family, it's your boy Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have coming to the stage Mr. Paul Compeau, a certified financial planner, and he is the founding partner at Bridgewise College Planning. Since 2008, he has personally helped over 500 families across the U.S. plan for college without compromising their long-term financial goals. And he is here blessing us on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage and is going to help us peel back some of those unanswered questions as we prepare our households, our family members to send our loved ones, our children, our kids off to the college, hopefully the college of their dreams. With a CFO style approach, Mr. Paul empowers parents to save significantly, often $40,000+ at top tier schools like NYU, Boston University, Stanford, Michigan, and so many more. And he is here to share some of that wisdom, share that background knowledge with us on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. So help me welcome him to the stage, Mr. Paul. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Marcus. I'm excited to share with you and your guests.
I'm excited to have you. This is phenomenal. What you do and what your company does is absolutely phenomenal. But I want to start off with a curveball question, right? Because you could have done anything with all your knowledge. You could have gatekept. You could have kept all of that to yourself and not shared your expertise. But you co-founded a company to help give back. I'm assuming, I'm guessing, but you can speak more onto it. You co-founded this company to help give back to people looking to send their loved ones off to college. Why? Why did you choose this path when you could have gone in so many different directions?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that the more you give out, the more you get back. So when we look at what we can share with the world, what we can change, knowledge, information, helping people make good decisions, if I give that to you, you have it and I still have it too, right? So the more we can share with people, the more we can spread the word about good financial decisions, especially when it comes to planning for college, the more better everybody's going to be. So it's not like, if I have a pizza and I give you half the pizza, now I only have half a pizza, right? Sharing the information, sharing the wisdom, sharing the experience that I've had with other people is something that's very important. And when people realize the experience that we have, it's also good for our business, right? People want to work with people who have the expertise, who have the experience, and what better way to show that to the world than to share it with them?
That's absolutely true. That's so true. And you're right? We live in a very selfish frame of mind. We live in a very selfish kind of life, right? People sometimes gatekeep, like I mentioned, and they try and hog all the information. But you're right. You don't lose anything by sharing the information, especially when it comes to the cost of going to college. College, my goodness, I was looking at some stats. The cost of college has gone up tremendously. Can you speak to that? Why do you think the cost has gone up so tremendously, and which has led to what you do is help people save money, like we shared from your extensive bio, almost upwards of $40,000 a year. But it didn't always cost that, right? It didn't always cost that to go to the college. Why do you think that's happened? Why do you think that's occurred, that cost has gone up for college?
Yeah, cost going up is a huge concern. Right now, most state universities, if you're in state, are somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 per year. When you're out of state, it's like 50, 60,000. Then you have the private universities that are 60, 70, 80,000. And now the elite category, there's a bunch of schools between $85,000 and $100,000 per year per student. So for most people that are doing college planning, they're looking at $250,000 per kid in order to pay that college expense. So 3 kids, we're talking $250,000 is what college is likely to expect to spend if you pay full sticker price. And that's why it's so important to get the financial aid and get everything you deserve. So why is that cost so high? There's a few different reasons. One is lack of support, direct financial support from the government as much as there used to be for those public universities. The support they do get is loans, which actually ends up inflating the cost in many cases. But when we look at the overall cost of college, one of the big things that attracts students to a university is how nice the buildings are. So if you look around, if you go and tour enough colleges, I promise you'll find one that has a water slide at the rec center. Um,
What?
does that really help them do better education in the physics class and everything else? No. But that's what draws students to university. It's the nice new dorms that are brand new, that have private showers, bigger rooms, all of the different things like that, the beautiful campus center buildings. All of those different things attract those students to the university. So they're spending big bucks on that infrastructure in those universities. Other parts of the cost go to research and things like that. But one of the bigger costs that universities also have, other than the expertise of the expertise of the professors and everything like that, the other big cost that they do is technology. So one of the things that's unique about universities is they're always training the next generation of workers, right? So if there's a great new computer technology, if there's a great new manufacturing technology, packaging technology, medical technology, whatever it is that they're teaching the kids, they need to be on the cutting edge and have that next generation teaching with that up-to-date medical or engineering or whatever other devices they need. And that costs money too. So they're constantly having to reinvest in those types of things, especially on the technology side, to make sure they're up to date as things are changing in the real world. They need to be a few years, they're trying, I should say, to be a few years ahead of the real world. So yeah, all that's expensive, and they can. That's the other big part is if parents are willing to go into debt, if parents are willing to pay the higher prices, they can keep raising the prices.
That's fair. That's fair. That's absolutely fair, and that makes perfect sense, right? If the college specializes in a certain new age equipment,
Mhm.
then obviously that has a cost and a maintenance to it, right? So if you want to be an aerospace engineer, or astronaut or engineer, or a tech, you're going
Mhm.
into the tech field. There's technology is changing every 5 seconds.
Right.
And so if you're going to a college specifically for that, understand that to be trained on that piece of equipment, it's going to require a bigger cost. And
Yep.
so so you're saying, let me ask the question. You're saying the slide in the recreational center isn't a significant value to me in the consideration. If I come to you, Mr. Paul, and I say, well, my kid wants to go over here because they have a slide in their rec center, that I need to, what are some things that
They're,
is important, or
they,
that I should be
they,
looking for?
yeah, they're not going to say that like that simply. Like that's the reason I'm going. They're going to love the campus tour and the atmosphere that they have, right? And that is important. So we want the school that we're considering to be a good cultural fit. If it's not a culture fit, if it's too conservative, if it's too liberal, if it's too religious or not religious enough, or all the other factors, if it's in a city, if it's in the country, there's certain kids that are going to fit really well at certain campuses, right? So we need it to be a culture fit. So is the water slide part of that? Maybe. It just doesn't add into the educational value in the classroom, right? So those are the kind of things, some schools are known as party schools, right? I'm sure you can find a party everywhere, but is that the kind of culture you want to be part of? Do you want to be a part of a culture where all of the students are very academically driven and they're going to be nerding out in the library with your student, right? Or do you want to be somewhere where it's more casual and everybody loves going to the football games on Saturdays, right? Those are the different experience, the different campuses that you can experience. And that's why those visits are so important. So culture fit is definitely a big part of it. The next one is the coursework. We need to make sure that they have the education that they need, right? So do they have the right majors? Do they have expertise in those majors? And usually we're working with teenagers. So we're not just looking at the main major, we're looking for a backup major as well in most cases. So if they do need to change majors, there isn't a transfer involved. All the credits keep going and we can still graduate on time. So if we have the campus fit, we have the coursework fit. The last one is cost. And for a lot of people, that should be first, is if the campus, if it's going to cost $90,000 a year and your financial plan only covers $25,000 a year, we need to make sure that that cost isn't prohibiting you from going there, right?
Yeah.
So those are the three big things. If we get a good campus fit, we get a good coursework fit, we get a good cost, then we have a good university for that student. And that's a good one to visit and a good one to consider and maybe even apply to.
That's fair. That's absolutely fine. I love that. I love how you break that down so delicately, and you break out, hey, these are the things you really should be considering, and the recreational room doesn't add value, but the education does, right? Because and
Mhm.
do have you ever what is an ideal client for you, and what is not an ideal client for you? If I say to you, hey, all I got is you know $5,000 to assist my child with college, but I don't I had a late start. I don't have
Yeah.
all the money to cover tuition. What would you advise someone who doesn't have all the money to cover the cost of college for their child or children? Are there steps you can walk them through financially to say, well, you still have options?
Yeah, so I'll start with that's everybody. So out of there's 500 or 600 families I've worked with personally to guide them through how to pay for college. I've only had maybe 6 or 7 of them that actually had enough money to pay for college. So that's normal. That's everybody only has so much money, and it's not going to cover how much they need for college. So that's normal. It doesn't make it right, but it is how most people come to us. The question I have is for most people, is that actually all you want to help the kids with, or that's all you think you can help the kids with, right? So in many cases, most families want to help their kids with more. If they only have 5,000 saved for college, they're ahead of a lot of people who are going to send their kids off to the college in the same year. A lot of people have $0 saved for college.
Mm,
And that's where it's our responsibility. We work in late stage college planning. So most of our families have high school students. They're, less than a year, sometimes 3 or 4 years away from paying that college bill. And we're able to figure out that financial plan every single time without using loans is our goal, right? And that's where loans just compound and delay the problem. So we want to put together those financial plans with people and how we can pay that bill, how can make sure we keep in mind all the other good financial planning things. We don't want to sacrifice your retirement or make you sell your house and move into a tiny apartment or eat rice cakes and ramen noodles. Like that's not a good financial plan to pay for college, right? We want to make sure that you're making good financial decisions to build the financial life that you want, including pay for college.
that's fair. I love that. I love that approach. So, do you assist with grants and helping people plan for grants and finding those hidden monies, right? Those hidden monies
Yeah.
that are out there that are lingering to help pay for college. Do you assist with that?
Yeah, so absolutely is the answer. But most people have a lot of misnomers on how the grants or scholarships are going to work in college. So, of all of the financial aid out there that you can get for college, only about 2% comes from private scholarships. So, when you hear about the people applying for scholarships because they're left handed or they're part of a local community and things like that, those are great scholarships. We love getting those, but they're such a tiny piece of the pie. We do help clients to make sure they're taking advantage of that. But most kids are only going to get maybe if they're awesome kids, they're going to get maybe $2,000 from that. Every once in a while, we'll see one higher, but that's about the high watermark that we normally see most years is maybe $1,500 or $2,000 total in those types of scholarships. So all of the financial aid you're going to get comes from the university. So you need to start as soon as 8th grade. If we're just looking to how do we get more in financial aid, 8th grade is when we start planning that high school career. There's financial decisions you need to make as soon as sophomore year of high school that are going to change how much you end up paying for college. So in financial aid, there's the need-based side, there's the merit-based side, and then there's the tuition reductions. The merit-based is based on the student's grades and their resume and their GPA and things like that. That's building that resume over those 4 years of coursework. We need to start in 8th grade to make sure they're taking the right classes the freshman year, the sophomore year, the junior year, the senior year of high school, because all of that is going to go off to the university and determine how much merit-based aid you're going to have. So I'm blessed. Our team has counselors that meet with the students to help them in every stage of that college plan, including how do we write the essay? How do we fill in the application? How do we develop the stories that we want that admissions officer to read to get into the university? But it's those same applications that are used for those merit-based scholarship. And then on the financial aid side, we're looking at the freshman and sophomore year of what financial moves do we need to make in order to optimize the financial aid formulas. And that's something that most people don't have the expertise in how those financial aid formulas work or what levers you can pull because just an extra $10,000 in savings can increase your bill for college anywhere between $500 and $2,500, depending on where you save it. And that's a huge difference. If you want to pay less for college, saving money in the wrong place will cost you quite a bit. So I'll repeat that. Just an extra $10,000 in savings could cause your college bill to increase between $500 and $2,500 per year. So we don't want to save in the wrong spots where we end up having to pay more for college because we were responsible and saved.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're talking about a college savings account that's specifically designated for savings
Yeah,
for
so things
college.
like a 529 is a great example of
529.
a college designated account. When we look at 529s, they're think from so let's take a step back. The financial aid office at the college is the billing arm of a very successful business. So if we're thinking about what information we're sending out to the billing arm and they see that you have a bunch of money saved for college, do you think they would charge you more or less?
I would hope they would charge me less because I'm saving it for college.
You're the one that has the money though. And they
Ah,
know they're going to get that money because you saved it in the 529 for college, right? So when you save money in certain types of an account, and it's not just 529s, those certain accounts will count against you in the financial aid formula. So you reduce how much financial aid you get. They're looking to see which families can afford the bill and which ones need some extra help, right? The
absolutely.
one that has a bunch of money saved up for college can afford more bill, right? And that's what they're from their perspective. Am I saying that system is right? Absolutely not. But that is how it works. So we get to play within the system. It's just like somebody doing your taxes. We follow the rules, but we're looking for every opportunity to have more money in your pocket and less money go off to the university.
Love it. Love it.
So when we're looking for a place to put money for college, financial aid should absolutely be a consideration. The next one is liquidity. So if we need that money for something else, can we use it for it, right? So we put money into a 529 is the example that you wanted to go through. That's locked up for college. If you use it for anything else, there's huge taxes, huge penalties, and it just doesn't make sense. So that money's pretty well locked up for college because of those taxes and penalties. So when we have money there, let's say you need a new car. Well, if you don't have another money, then you need to pay with financing. So now we're financing that, or you need a new roof, or you need a home improvement, or life happens and 2 years in a row you're max out of pocket on your health insurance and you didn't have the money to cover it. You can't use that 529 money for anything else. So that liquidity is a big factor, and making sure it's liquid at the right points in life that you're actually going to need to use it. So that's a big deal as well. And then we look at the investment performance. I'm a numbers nerd at heart, and I have a team on that we analyze investments on a regular basis on behalf of our clients. And one of the things we found is very rarely do we see a 529 fund that's overperforming its benchmark. So in most of them, you're taking similar or higher risk and getting lower returns. And that's where we don't love the idea of putting money into a place where we're going to still take a bunch of risk, but not have the returns. And that risk becomes higher and higher as you get closer to college. Because if you're 3 years away from college, you might not have time to ride the stock market down and all the way back up before you have to pay for college. And that's a big deal for people. And they're nervous that what if the market drops by 40 or 50% like it did in 2001, like it did in 2008, drop by 30% at the beginning of COVID. There were still bills due while the market was down during COVID, right? There were still bills due in 2008 when it took another 4 years to recover, right? 2001 to 2007, it barely recovered and then it dropped again, right? So the bills are still due even when the market's down. And that's a big risk with certain types of investments for college. So we'd love it to have guaranteed growth. If we're going to get that growth, we might as well know it's going to happen. But we need the liquidity, we need the financial aid. So we're now setting kind of the framework of how we want our money to work. And certain things do really well with some categories and do bad with others. And there's all sorts of different ways to look at it. So 529s are, I should take a step back and say, it's always good to save for college, right? if you have an expense coming up, saving money from a financial planning perspective is almost always better than spending the money, right? So if you have the option to buy a new boat or put the money into your college savings plan, put it in the college savings plan if you want your kid to go to college, right? And that's kind of how we think about things. Is saving is always good. Where you save is going to be a little icing on the cake of get more financial aid, get more tax benefits, all of those different things.
Absolutely. I love that you walked us through that and speak on that. And you are sharing something that is not talked about, right? I don't think I've ever heard someone talk against the 529 plan, but it's so necessary. And I'm glad you broke that down and you took the time to share with that. It may not be the best vehicle for you if you're not going to have, if it's not going to be advantageous for you, especially because a 529 plan is the money is invested in a market that it can be volatile, right? And so I love how you shared that it may not be the best plan. Every person you talk to will tell you, oh, 529 it, 529 it. And that's not always the case. There's a reason why you have a specific designator at the end of your name. It's CFP. And can you help us understand what that doesn't, why that designation at the end of your name is significant for you, but also other members of your team have that same designation as well?
Yeah, so the members of my team have the designations that are in there. So like our counselors aren't certified financial planners. They're through the Independent Education Counselors Association. They have the designations they need to help the students, right? So financial planning is just one of the many functions we do on our team. But everybody's well qualified for the exact position they have. And that's what we love is we love education. We love getting those things. For me, it was important just to learn and expand in areas outside of my expertise. To learn more on the tax side, learn more on the estate planning side, some of those kind of things as I got that CFP. And it's a recognized degree. When people look up who should we hire, who should we have us help us with our finances, number one is fiduciary financial advisor. I've always tried to operate under that premise. But number two is you should hire a CFP. And then number three is usually hire somebody in your specialty. And my specialty is college planning and making sure that works all the way around with your retirement, with your cash flow, with everything else you have going on financially. So that's a lot of why I got the CFP. But Marcus, you're going to be really disappointed. The CFP, I did 6 master's level classes at NYU in order to get that CFP designation. I did an all day, I think it was 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon test to see if I could qualify for the designation. I do continuing education every single year. Over 24 hours of continuing education every single year to keep that designation. I spent about 20 minutes learning about how to pay for college and all of that education for the CFP.
What?
I am dead serious.
You're kidding me.
And all they said is, here's how you take the cash flow and calculate how much somebody would need to save. If there's a 6% interest rate and 3% inflation on the college cost, here's how you calculate the number. And I'm like, you can like I can do it by hand on an old school calculator. That's, you know what I mean? Is that useful? No, right? That's all they cover. And that's why most of the financial world does what they do with college planning, is because there isn't education on it, that there isn't expertise going around that community with college planning. And that's one of the really interesting things. Most people have a financial planner. Have you ever heard the saying where when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail?
Yes, I have heard that.
The only tool most financial planners have to save for college is a 529, right? And that's where every time they have a college planning situation come up, that's what they recommend. Now, do you ever put enough money into there? No, right? If you have high school families that are listening, parents of high school students, they probably opened a 529 and they made good financial decisions. Most people who work with us made some really good financial decisions and they saved some money, but they didn't understand everything they needed to. And whoever they were working with on a financial aspect didn't understand everything. They didn't think about the financial aid. They didn't think about the liquidity. They didn't think about how debt would affect their ability to pay the college bill. And that's what I look at is most of you ever hear the saying, you can borrow money for college, but you can't borrow money for retirement?
Yes, I have heard that saying.
And it's from the financial community, and it's terrible advice, because if you borrow money for college, how are you going to save the money for retirement for the 10 years after college before you retire, right? If you're working, if your kids are going to college when you're about 50 or 55 and you retire at 60 or 65, if you take on debt to pay for your kids' college, that's another 2 or 3 grand a month to pay for your kids' college when all that money should be saved for retirement. So how are you going to retire early when you have, $200,000 or $300,000 in debt for college?
That's true.
Because you didn't save the money for college, right? And that's where college usually comes first before retirement, right? So why is it, Marcus? And I'll get into a little bit. I'm on my soapbox, I know.
You're fair.
Why is it when you're 20, they teach you to save money for retirement before you have enough money to buy your first house, before you have enough money for your next car, before you have money to get married, before you have money for college? All those things come before you retire, right?
Right.
Why does the financial community have you set up the retirement accounts first?
That's the longest time horizon. If I had to guess, that's the longest time horizon.
Well, absolutely.
And it's better to start when you're young, right? Because if I wait until you buy your house, buy your maybe not first car, but buy those other things, those things they have a shorter time horizon. They're gonna come a lot sooner, I think. And like you said earlier, you made a great point. You may not even go to college. So now I've locked away all this money in this 529 plan and reserved it for college. And then my child tells me, I'm not even going to college. Now what do I do? Now I'm stuck. But they still they'll probably buy a house, they'll probably buy a car, all the other things.
Sure.
Maybe, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is the financial companies. Most of us start our first retirement account in our early 20s because some wise person told us put money away. You get the time value of money. It can grow over the years, right? Marcus, I don't want to be too deep into your personals, but I'm assuming you have some sort of retirement account, right?
I do.
When are you going to spend the last dollars out of that?
I won't. I imagine I will die before I spend the last dollars, or at least that's the goal. Absolutely. I shouldn't run out of retirement funds. That's a problem.
Yeah, because you don't know when you're going to die, so you always need money for the next day, right?
Absolutely.
So absolutely, we want those to last a really long time. And don't let me say that's a bad thing, because we do need money for retirement and all the other things we want to build in our financial life. But they get that money, the financial companies who make that little percentage off of that money, they get that money. If you start when you're 25 and you end when you're 85, they get that little percentage for 60 years, right? Now, let me ask you this, Marcus. If all that money's locked up for retirement, how do most people pay for cars, pay for houses, pay for college?
You save. You save for your first car. You save for your house. You're supposed to save for college.
Right. Do you think most people have a mortgage on their house?
Yes.
When they first get it? Absolutely.
Yes.
Do you think a lot of people have a financing on their cars?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of people have to finance college because they don't have $250,000 saved?
Yes.
Absolutely. Who makes money when you finance stuff?
The bank.
Is that the same company who makes the money on the retirement?
Yes, it can be. Yes.
JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, all of these huge conglomerate financial companies.
Charles Schwab.
They're making money on both sides of the equation, right? So why would they teach people anything different?
Oh my gosh, that was hard for me. That was hard for me when I was in banking, because I would have people come to me wanting to start building their financial future. And I wanted to go down the path of a financial advisor. But the problem is a financial advisor can't even touch you unless you already have a set number of money, because that's how the financial advisor gets paid. So I need you to already have the money. It's not necessarily the goal is to teach you how to make money.
Yeah, you've heard the commercials. If you have 500,000 or more, now it's $1 million or more to invest, give us a call and we'll be happy to work with you. And maybe you can get good financial, not great financial advice, but good financial advice, at least for retirement planning or investing. That's what's one of the big things that's different about how I started Bridgewise, why we operate the way we do. We're a fee-based company. Bridgewise College Planning only works for the clients that we serve. So we don't work for a bank. We don't work for a brokerage company. We don't work for a college. We don't work for the government. We only work for those clients we serve. So for a fee, and we do make fees from our clients, we're not shy about that. We only work for our clients. That's the only place we get money. That's how you get good financial advice, is you have to buy it somebody's time from them, right? And that's really where most people succeed, is when they get that advice, when they get what's best in their best interest. Because based on what I'm saying here, Marcus, it's possible that a lot of people aren't getting financial advice in their best interest, right?
That's true. Why isn't my guidance counselor? Why isn't the financial aid office talking about this or talking about this enough? Is it what you said earlier? Because the college and the banks make money off of this. They make money off of this, or why aren't they
It's
saying this more?
Yeah, so two separate groups you mentioned there. One is the financial aid office at the university. They're not looking to help you pay less. They're the billing arm of the university. They choose, their job is to fill that freshman class and give out as little scholarship as possible, right? If they were trying to give out maximum scholarship, they wouldn't have an endowment at the university, right?
Mm,
So they're trying to protect the university's interest and help fill that freshman class. So in order to fill, if you think of a school that costs $90,000 a year, if they charged everybody full price, do you think they could fill their freshman class?
they definitely could not.
No, absolutely not. If they charged everybody zero, do you think they would have enough money?
No, they would not.
So we need some people that pay 10,000, some people that pay 30,000, some people that pay 50,000, some that pay 70, and there's going to be some that pay full price, right? Very few, but there's going to be some that pay full price. We want our clients to be in the lowest tier that they can get to get that university education. So the financial aid office is not looking at just your family. So imagine it this way, Marcus. Let's say there's 100 families with a very similar financial situation. They can give some scholarship, but they only give enough scholarship so that 30 of those 100 families say yes. Right? So they're playing those numbers games, and bad news for the families, those schools know what those numbers are, right? They know exactly how many people are, because they've been doing it for over 100 years. So that's a big deal when it comes to making sure our families, even very wealthy families, can get the amount of financial aid that they should be getting. So financial aid office, you have to be really careful. We need to work with them, but we need to work with them strategically, because if you approach them the wrong way and you tell them, hey, this is how much money we have saved in our 529. Here's how much money we have. We paid down the house some, but we still have a mortgage payment. You start giving them all this financial information. What you did is you just gave them their calculation of how much to charge you, and it's going to be in their favor, not necessarily yours. And they don't care that you have a second or third or fourth kid that are coming behind, right? Yeah. They're just worried about how much money they can get from you this 1 year. So I'm not saying they're bad people, so don't hear that wrong. They're great people. It's just that's what their job function is, right?
They have a job to do.
And that's what the university expects from them. The other one you mentioned, though, is really more interesting to me. It's the guidance counselors. So the guidance counselors usually come from the high school. And it's unfortunate because there really just isn't enough college counselors. The American Student Counselor Association says right now there's 408 students per counselor at the high school level. So each one individual counselor is serving over 400 high school students. So, and you think about it, if your local high school has 2,000 students, 500 per class, there's probably about 4 guidance counselors, right? And they're serving whatever part of the alphabet they're supposed to be serving, and they do their best. But those school counselors only have so much time. Their focus is a lot of times on the high school scheduling. That's what they'll talk to them about. Are you on a college prep program or high school schedule, or are you on an average high school schedule, right? What classes do you need to make sure you get the high school diploma, right? Those are the kind of things they're worried about. They're worried about bullying in the schools. They're worried about social issues in the schools. They're worried about all of those other things along with college, right? So would they love, I promise you, these are the kindest, most wonderful counselors in the world are working at these high schools. They would love to spend all of their time with the A students who are going somewhere in the world that don't have as many problems, but that's not their role, right? They have to serve everybody in the high school, and that's what there is. And there's just not enough of them. So what we noticed from the high school counselors is they'll do a tiny bit on an individual basis, but not much. What they usually do is group setting things. So they'll have a college night and they'll put on a college fair. Well, they'll have, 8 or 10 different colleges come into the high school, or they'll go visit a college fair or something like that. They'll do group trainings with a webinar about applications or essays or things like that, but you're not getting one-on-one help. And that's where they really struggle, is they don't have the time for that one-on-one help. And that's why we have the counselors on our team. Is we need that college to be a right fit if we're going to pay less for college. Because if the college isn't right fit, either financially, academically, or the campus culture, the student's going to transfer, and all of a sudden we have to pay for a 5th year, maybe a 6th year, because the average bachelor's degree right now takes 5.8 years.
Right.
If you're going to take 5.8 years for a 4-year degree, and it costs you $40,000 a year, that's an extra $80,000 out of mom and dad's pocket, and they couldn't afford the 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But more important, Marcus, is the student isn't in their working career as soon. So the student doesn't get 2 years, and whatever amount they're going to make after they get that bachelor's degree, depends on the field, could be $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 per year. They're not earning that income for an extra 2 years. They're not an adult for an extra 2 years. And that's a huge drawback, right?
Do you add that to the math or the calculation when financially planning? Like, hey, based off of what we learned from Bridgewise, hey buddy, hey daughter, hey son, you're gonna have to work, right? Is that brought into the calculation at all when a family reaches out to you, like, hey, we're not gonna have enough to make this math work.
Yeah.
So we need you to get a job when you go to college. And then
even if the math works, we want that kid to have a college job when they go off to college, and we want them paying a small portion of the bill. Even if we have a family who, they have $500,000 saved for their 2 kids' college, they're going to be able to get through it. And they could put more money, if they needed to. I'm still going to encourage that family to have the student work and pay a small portion of their own tuition. And what they found in the studies is that students who work during college, 3 big things are going to happen. Number one, they're going to get better grades than those who don't work at all. Not only are they going to get better grades, they're going to finish on time. 98% of the time they finish on time. They get better grades. And this is really interesting. I'll dig in just a little bit, Marcus, in the weeds here. The students who work between 10 and 20 hours per week get the best grades out of anybody in college. You have to work between 10 and 20 hours per week to get the best grades out of any category of workers. They get better grades than those who don't work at all. They get better grades than those who work, less than 10 hours. And they get better grades. You can overdo it. If you're working more than 20 hours a week, the grades suffer. So if we can get in that sweet spot, 10 to 20 hours a week during the semester, they can work 40 hours a week over the summer at minimum wage. And it's a little different in different states, but they're going to make $11,000 or $12,000 a year if they're at minimum wage. And I don't know any fast food that's only paying minimum wage right now. So most places you can do a little bit better, but they can make $12,000 a year. We need some of that to go to their spending money. So for most families, we recommend $5,000 to $6,000 the student contributes to pay for a small portion of their own college. Is that going to cover everything? No, probably not going to cover most of it for most families. But it's going to help a little bit for the lower income families that the student's helping pay. That's going to help with the budget, definitely. For the higher end of families that have a lot of income, they could pay for it themselves. It's going to help the student finish on time. The third thing that happens when the student works and pays part of their own tuition is they get better internships and they get better jobs after. So think about it, Marcus. I don't know if you've done hiring in your experience or your listeners are hiring people. But think about looking at 2 resumes. Mm-hmm. One has the degree you want to hire. The other has the degree you want to hire. They both went to a good university. We want to hire one of these 2 kids. One of them has 5 years of work history. One of them has 0. Which one are you going to have come in an interview?
I want the one with the work history.
Right. And that's why they get better internships. And then based on those internships, they get better jobs afterwards, right? Is the students who worked a little bit during high school, worked during college, they're going to have a much easier time. So not only do they finish on time, get better grades, they're going to get a better job after. And it's not the only reason people go to college, but that's a big reason people go to college is to get a great job afterwards.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. That makes absolute sense. I love that you said that because I knew it. I subliminally knew it. I hadn't seen the data like you saw, but I knew it. I knew that there is a benefit until you just said it. I knew there was a benefit to working in college. And I always hear the gripes of the parents that say, oh my gosh, I don't want my child to work because I want them to focus on my studies. But
Mm-hmm.
there's data supporting that this child is invested in their education. I can and you can almost bet your bottom dollar that if the child is working and if they're sitting there spending those 10, 20 hours at a job, they're invested. They're invested
Mm-hmm.
in their education. They're going to strive a little bit more. They're going to study a little bit harder, and they're not going to party as much. They're not
Right.
going to go out when their friends are partying and saying, "Hey, let's forget the homework. Let's forget the assignment. Let's not read the textbook. Let's just fail our way through and take remedial courses because our parents are flipping the whole bill." No, you just shared it that there's data behind this child investing in their education. I'll never forget when, again, I was in finance and I was working at the bank, and a mom had came in with her daughter who was going off to college, and the mom was like, "I didn't save anything, so we have to go to student loan route." And so she applied through the bank. We submitted her application, and it came back to saying that, hey, it's rejected, and the mother broke down crying
Mm-hmm.
because her daughter has to go to work. Her daughter has to work in college, and she felt like a complete failure. I said, you didn't fail anything, right? You didn't fail anything. You didn't fail your daughter. Your daughter still is going, if she wants to go, right? If this is the degree, if this is her path, if she wants to go, she has to apply herself and work during college. And it's not a failure on anybody's family. I want to put that behind your statement.
Right.
Parents, you are not failing your child if your child has to go to work to go to college, because that's a myth. Can you agree with me, Mr. Paul, based off of what you just shared? It's
Yeah, but I will say that the parents do need to contribute if the kids go into college, right?
right.
So a student can only work so many hours. They're not going to be able to afford 40 grand a year for tuition, room, and board. So the parents need to provide somehow. Sometimes, if you go to a local school, the parents will provide the housing and the food. You know what I mean? The student lives at home, and then the student can take out some student loans and work enough just to cover the tuition. You know what I mean? But the parents are still providing part of that education, right? The big deal, right? So that is possible, but definitely the parents are going to have to do something. So the maximum student loans is a big myth that students can take out the loans for college. The freshman year for an undergraduate, you can only take out $5,500. So if the bill's 40 grand, the kid can't borrow money. And Marcus, you have some great listeners out there who have great children, but there isn't an 18-year-old on the earth who a bank is going to loan 40 grand to that kid, right? If they don't have a degree and they don't have a job, right? Um, so nobody's going to do it other than the federal government, and those are very limited each year. So if the student can work a little bit, they can take a little bit of loans. They might be able to cover $11,000, $12,000, but they're not going to cover the full bill. And that's where you need a financial plan for the rest of the bill. And for most people, they've never put together a blueprint of how that bill is going to get paid, right? So the questions you're asking, what we're kind of going through here is a few building blocks of how that blueprint of how we're going to pay for college. But the first step, put together year by year how much money you're going to need. Most people have never even done that have a high school student looking at colleges, right? And that's one of the big things is for all of your students. If you have 2 or 3 students, we need to include the little siblings too. How much money are you going to need? When are you going to need it? Is the first step of building that schedule. And then the harder part is how are we going to pay for it, right?
Absolutely. That's so true. That's so true. I want to touch on it because I didn't have the traditional college experience. I went virtually to
Yeah.
college, and I'm also a veteran, so I'm also a Navy vet who served my
Oh, that's
country for.
awesome. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support, and I appreciate you so much. So I didn't have the traditional college experience, so this is new to me. One of the things I heard or discovered that people have to write a personal essay to
Mhm.
certain colleges in order to attend. So, what is the difference, or what's the necessity? How much do the elite colleges really care about that personal essay? Secondly, do you assist with writing a banger essay, an incredible essay, and what makes the essay unforgettable? Those are my two questions on that.
Yeah, so essays, there's a few things. They can tell if an adult wrote it or if ChatGPT wrote it. Like it's obvious. So we're not able to write the essays for the kids or anything like that. What we can do is provide them guidance. We can look at, most schools have a number of different essay prompts that you could write about. So we can brainstorm with the kids, and our counselors do that every single year. In the spring of the junior year is the right time to be doing that. Maybe in the winter of the junior year. You want to start thinking through those different essay topics and what you might write about. Then we start to help them outline what that story is going to be. And we look at it when we're reviewing essays and developing essays, it's a little different mindset. When parents read an essay, they're looking to see, is all this factual, and they'll look a little for grammar and spelling as best they could, right? The English teacher is going to do a great job with paragraph structure and sentence structure and making sure they're using their full vocabulary and some of those kind of things, right? We're going to look at it from a college admissions standpoint. Does this story get the student into the university that otherwise they might not have? But we're not just looking at the essay, and this is an important part. Is a lot of people will piecemeal the college planning pieces together, and they'll just hire somebody to help the kid with the essay. What they miss is we need the whole application, including the essays, to tell one great story of that individual, right? So we want to tell the complete story of that individual student, not just one part on that essay. And that's a big deal when we're developing those students, that is going to help them. It's not us that gets the kid into the college, right? But we help, right? They have to do the activities, they have to do the writing, they have to build the resume during high school. We can help them, tell them what things look good, but they actually have to go and do it, right? We can't force them to be captain of their sports team. They have to put in the work and become the captain, right? That we can't force them to be an entrepreneur during high school, but we can tell them that it's a good idea for college applications, right? We can't go out there and do the volunteers hours for them, but we can tell them this many hours looks really good on an application and you want to do that all 4 years. So all of those different things add into that story that we want to tell about that student, of who they are as a person, to allow them to get into some universities that they might not have otherwise gotten into.
Absolutely, love this. I love this. I love these kinds of topics. Forgive me, I think I've missed this, but what's the earliest grade a family should start casually prepping for college? What's the earliest grade that you accept clients of families looking to send their child off to college? Because I imagine it has to be a balance, right? It can't be too young, right? Because
Yes.
this child doesn't even know. You ask me at 7 years old or 6 years old what I want to be. I'm gonna say something outlandish, right?
Well, usually they know what their parents do and what their teacher does, right? And maybe what their doctor does, right? And that's all about all they've been exposed to. So there's two different parts to that answer. One is on the financial planning side. On the financial planning side, you should have talked to us when you found out you were pregnant.
Hmm,
So
okay.
if you're going to save money for your kids' college education, the earlier you do it, the better, right? So if we can set up your financial life in a way, when you're in your 20s or early 30s, you first find out you're pregnant, you're building your financial life. If we can do that in a way that you have less debt, that you have a solid retirement, that you have the savings that you need to pay for college or whatever else comes up in life, you're going to be that much better off, right? So the earlier you start on the financial side, the better. Even before you're pregnant, right? You can have a great financial life set up before you're pregnant, and that's going to help you pay for college, right? On the admissions side, when we're looking at the college counseling and choosing what career path is the first step, when we match up kids, what we're doing is we're matching their survey and inventory from those kids to career paths that are successful in their 40s and 50s, of people who actually enjoy their careers still, and what things are similar in how that brain functions, what type of person they are. We're looking to match that up. So usually it's pretty soon after puberty that the brain, those parts of the brains aren't developing more. Who that person is going to be is pretty well locked in by that point. So usually 8th grade is about right to start that planning. That's also when we start planning for admissions based on activities and coursework during high school and things like that. So 8th grade is usually about the earliest. You want the student to be focused on what career, what college, all of those different things. What that allows you to do is then be on top of taking the SATs a few times in your sophomore and junior year before the applications come. It allows you to be on top of campus visits. So, if your family likes to travel in the summer anyways, we can tell you which campuses are good at that career field. And when you're going on your spring break trip for freshman and sophomore year, maybe you stop by a university and do a campus visit, and they get to know what they like about certain campuses, what they don't like. And that's how you develop that college plan in the most cohesive way. So 8th grade is probably the earliest you should start talking about it as far as specific with careers and colleges. But you want to lay the groundwork earlier. So my kids are 8 and 10 years old. I'm telling them the value of hard work. We're talking about what different career paths make, what the ideas are. My son Luke is talking, well, if I'm a garbage man, I said, that's a great job, but you're going to be working a lot, right? You're going to make good money because you're doing a smelly job, and he's okay with that, right? Because he's a 10-year-old boy. He doesn't care. He's thinking, and there's nothing wrong with being a garbage man. They make a good income. They can provide for their family, and nothing wrong with that. But you're going to be breaking your back every day, right? Is that the life that you want, right? Is that what you want to be doing? You have to show up in person every day that you want to work. Is that how you want your life to be, right?
There's no telehealth. there's no virtual.
Right. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about with my kids at a younger age. How we make money is we solve somebody else's problem, right? So we have we live in a suburban kind of rural area. We have a small family hobby farm a couple doors down from us with a guy that just grows a bunch of vegetables, doesn't use it for money as much, but has like 10 acres of farmland that he plants a bunch of different vegetables. They'll go over and work for him. They'll help solve his problem and make a little bit of money. That's how you make money. They'll do chores for relatives. They'll do whatever it is they can do. If they want to make money because they want to buy something, that's on them, right? So laying that groundwork of what work is, what different career paths look like, what flexibility you have, those things you can absolutely do at a younger age. But we're not looking to commit somebody to what career path they're going to have when they're 8 and 10 or 12 years old.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Do you help students consider trades or apprenticeships?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the interesting things, the misnomers about a college planning company is we're not trying to get your kid to go off to college. We're trying to get your kid to be the right career path for them. And that's one of the big things that's interesting. They hire us for college planning. If college is not the right path for the kid, that is the best news we could have given them, because they were about to force their kid to go to 4 years of education, spend $250,000 on it, and it wasn't the right path for them, right? How terrible would it be to learn that 8 years after college?
That'd be horrible.
Right.
And you can't get back that money.
Exactly. So and it's not that they didn't learn anything there. They went down a path, and I don't fault them for going down a path and trying it out and seeing how it goes. But what if we can come up with the right career path at first, right? And that's where most people who go off to college, they pick a college. Number one, I'll give you a guess, Marcus. What do you think the number one reason is a student picks a college?
His friends are going there.
Yep. Number one reason is they know somebody who went there. It's not always friends. It could be a sports teammate, or it could be their parents went there or something like that. They know somewhere who went there. Number two is they have beautiful buildings. That's why I talked about that earlier. So number one and number two, they knew somebody who went there. So they'll go to a college because somebody else had a great experience there. They'll have a good 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. They'll start taking classes their freshman year, and maybe they'll switch major because they liked a different class, right? Maybe their sophomore year, they switch major. That takes a little bit longer. And finally, they graduate, right? And they got a degree program that they enjoyed the classes in. And then they go online and they say, what job can I get with this degree, right? And that becomes their first job and their first career.
Makes sense.
That is exactly opposite of how it should be. We should be starting with our 8th and 9th graders of what career do you want? What actually makes sense for you? What is the first starting job in that career? Is a college education required for that starting job in that career path? So now we decided career path first instead of last. Then we look at the first job, and then we look at, is college required? And if college is required, then we look at colleges, right? If college isn't required, that's great, right? That's a good career path for them.
Yeah.
If college is required, then we look at what major is required, right? What study is going to lead to success in that career path? What for that first job, who do they want to hire? And then we look at what colleges excel at that major, along with the campus fit and with the financial fit.
Absolutely.
So we work that process backwards from how most kids do it.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense, and that's a line. I'm glad that you are open to the trades.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm completely. I really love that you're not just saying you gotta go into debt. You gotta go into massive debt. You only gotta get you gotta go to college. There's trades. What's the most surprising trade industry that you've recently seen, or your team that came across your desk that students often overlook? That's booming right now, as far as, hey, it's not a whole lot of money required, and at the end of it, it's very affordable. You may even be able to start while in school for this piece of degree or certification or license, and you come out the other end way than any industries that surprised you recently in the past couple of years that was like, wow, based off of what this you discussed with this family or team discussed, this is a really booming industry. This is needed.
Yeah, so I won't call it a booming industry, and there's any number of examples from plumbers. There's all sorts of great apprenticeships for pipe fitters, for electricians, for welders, all sorts of different programs you can go into. So this is not the only one. Firefighters and medics
Really?
is actually a really nice path that has a good income, has good not great working hours. It's different working hours than whatever they're doing their 12-hour, 24-hour shifts. So they only work 1 or 2 days a week in a lot of cases. So if we're looking at having 2 working spouses in a household, that really helps with the schedule, right? So yeah, there's quite a bit in there that they can work while they're on their job. You get a basic EMT, and then you turn into a paramedic, and then some people get the firefighter certifications before or after that. So yeah, there's a number of steps that you can take that you could be working while you're getting the next step of education.
What's the turnaround time on getting those certifications? What's the turnaround time? What's that, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year? Is that still a 4 year time frame or shorter?
Yeah, so I'm not the expert on those,
That's
so
fair.
I'll defer that answer. That's why I'll tell you right now, Marcus, as much as I know about what our counseling team does, I am absolutely not qualified to tell a 16-year-old what they should be doing with their life, and that's why I hire some amazing counselors to work with those kids.
I love that. I love this. I want to talk about what is the first step. I want to talk about your website, and how can people get on board? What can people do? What tools and resources are found on your website here for Bridgewise?
Yeah, so we have a great tabs. We have all sorts of interviews we've done in the media like this. So Marcus, thank you for having us on. If you go to bridgewisecp.com, click on that college side there. That'll take you to the college planning website. So if you search Google for Bridgewise CP, that's what you'll find. One of the big things you'll find on that college planning website is the opportunity to do a college readiness breakthrough session. That's a one-on-one with us and your family to talk about how you're doing on your college plans with the student, how you're doing with the college plans with the financials, all of those different things, and being able to work with that family in order to succeed. So when we go over to that, yeah, there we go. That Bridgewise College Planning right there, there's a schedule your college readiness breakthrough session. If you want to do a workshop, that's about 1 hour and 15 minutes long. You can do that from your house. We're doing that on a virtual basis pretty consistently, usually twice a week. But that college readiness breakthrough session, you can schedule one right on there. Bring your kid to it, bring your spouse to it. The spouse is required. We love when the kids come as well, though. But yeah, we do love to have people come into those sessions and really share where their plans are. And we're looking to see if that family qualifies for our services. We're looking to see if there's holes in their plans. And if they want to do it themselves, they can absolutely do it themselves. Only about 3 in 10 families who come in for a college readiness breakthrough session actually qualify for our services. So only about 3 in 10 end up getting the opportunity to work with us. And the reason is we're very selective of who we sign on. So just because you have a high school student doesn't mean we're a great fit for you. And we're going to be the first people to tell you if you're not a great fit. So we have Marcus, probably before you had us on and before your families come in, they'll probably Google us, Bridgewise College Planning or something like that. You're going to see all 5-star reviews. You're going to see great things that clients love us. And because of that, the reason we have that is 2 reasons, really. One is we're awesome and we do really top-notch work. But the other reason that we have all really good reviews is because we are very selective of who we sign on. So we do charge a fee for our programs. It's multiple thousands of dollars. If we're going to charge a fee like that, we need to have a large multiple of return for those families. So we love helping people. If we're evaluating a client, we're all going to be looking for either at least an 8 times, but usually a 10 times return on the fee that Bridgewise is going to charge that family. We want to make sure you're getting a huge multiple in return. So just a little thing like avoiding college debt, right? If you pay for college using parent loans, you might pay $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 of interest and fees just for those college loans, right? So if you can pay a few $1,000s to us to avoid $60,000 of financial interest, why wouldn't you, right? And those are the families that if you're on the best path, you're doing great things and you have things pretty well figured out, maybe a couple tweaks we'll identify. We're not going to charge you a fee for us to do the planning with you if you're already doing most everything right.
Yeah.
We're looking for the families who have tried to do the right things, but they still know they're short. They still know they need help and they want their kid on the right path. So that's really who we're looking for our services.
Could I use the money in my 529 plan to pay for to cover your company's fee? Because technically it's college prep, it's college preparation. Could I use some of the money in my 529, my qualified 529 plan, or whatever savings vehicle I have to pay for your fee?
Yeah, good question. The answer is yes and no. So the answer is yes, you can cash in your 529 and go buy a car if you wanted to. You just have to pay the taxes and penalties. So what you're asking, Marcus, is a tax question of what are the qualified expenses that allow you to use the 529 money tax-free. Those expenses are very specific to tuition, room, board, books, those types of things. So you can't buy your kid a new car to go to college with a 529 and still have it be tax-free. So no, college planning services, just like paying for the SAT wouldn't be included. Paying for a guidance counselor wouldn't be included. Paying your financial advisor wouldn't be included. You couldn't be able to use a 529 tax-free for any of those things. So so we usually don't recommend using the 529, but I'm sure we've had families do it before and paid the little bit of taxes to make sure they're getting that multiple on their money.
Absolutely. Especially, again, because there's families that have already contributed, right? There are families that you probably come across, your team probably comes across all the time, who have already started a 529 plan because they've met with someone else who wasn't you or wasn't a part of Bridgewise, who told them, oh, just start a 529 plan. And they've already set that precedence. And because it's locked in there, they can't touch it. And so that probably happens more times than not. Like, oh, I already started one. I can hear the audience screaming.
Oh yeah. So we can't undo what you already did, and it's better to save than to not save. So right. So it's better to do that instead of taking your family out for a steak dinner when the kid was younger, right? If we're looking to pay for college. So that's always good. So good that you have savings. That's going to put you ahead of those families who didn't save, right? You're going to have an easier path of figuring out how to pay for college, but that doesn't mean you have it figured out, right? So that's where most people need some more. They need help. It's last minute now, and we need to figure out what else we need to do to get the rest of the bill paid for, right? Because the average 529 has about between $25,000 and $30,000 in it nationwide. If colleges, at the cheap universities, we're looking at $120,000 right now. You only have 30 grand saved. You're nowhere close to having that bill paid, right?
True.
But you have 30 grand that some of the other families didn't save, right? So that's good news. And that's where most of our families end up is we tend to work with families. The people who come in for college readiness breakthrough sessions are families who made good decisions when they thought they knew the right thing to do, right? So saving money for college is one of those things a lot of those families did when they found out they could, right? Whether they did it the perfect way or not, we can discuss in the college readiness breakthrough session. But yeah, usually we'll say what we're looking at with the 529s that they have is, yes, we could cancel it, pay the taxes, take all the money out, put it into a different financial vehicle that might be better for financial aid. But is the potential gain in financial aid better than paying the extra taxes on the 529 to cash it in early? And that's the analysis that has to happen. Most of the time it's not. So we leave that money in the 529, but we spend that money first so that it's off the financial aid formulas for the following years, right?
Yep.
And then we just start saving elsewhere. But very rarely, I don't think I've ever had a family put more money into a 529 once they found out how it works for paying for college after they learn about it. So saving elsewhere is usually going to be your best option.
Absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. I know you, as a founder, a co-founder in this company, I know you probably take pride in it slips by your desk and it comes by your desk. Some positive reviews, some stories of how your company has impacted someone's life, a family's life, changed their life for the better.
Yeah.
What's a moment when you knew your hard work had transformed someone's trajectory, someone's future, some young boy, some young girl's future college aspirations? Can you share a story or a positive moment where it's like, yeah, I'm in the right place, I'm doing the right thing?
Yeah, so they say a picture tells 1,000 words, right? We had a family that was dad was a university professor and endowed chair of his department, pretty good income. Mom worked for the state education system. Just a great family. We loved working with them. They came to us at the very last minute, though. We were able to negotiate with New York University, got her a boatload of additional financial aid, brought that cost from around $90,000 down to about a $40,000 range. Because of that, they still had to scrape together and come up with that money, but they could afford that $40,000. They couldn't afford the $90,000. And I got a picture with her. She put a bumper sticker on the back of her little Jeep. She's all smiles with her thumbs up, and just love those moments where that dream school for that student becomes a reality because of the work that we did. And she had to get all the things to get into the university. As much as we can help a student with the application, she got into the university. Mom and dad still have to pay for it, but we were that great part that we knew the right levers to pull to make sure that education could actually happen.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. How can people connect? How can people learn more? The train has left the station. You all are doing incredible things and helping so many people change their lives. But how can people find you? How can people book that consultation? Where's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so type into Google Bridgewise College Planning, BRIDGEWISE, Bridgewise College Planning. You can go to bridgewisecp.com. Click on that free college readiness breakthrough session. That'll get you right onto our calendar to meet with our team, see if you're a fit, see if you want to get going. There's a contact us form on that website as well. If you have any other messages for us, wanted to shoot me a personal message, feel free to send that over to us, bridgewisecp.com.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Connect, y'all. This is absolutely fabulous. I love this. Unfortunately, y'all, we are out of time. We got to let this incredible man go. He shared so many nuggets and so many tips and helped so many people change their lives. But I want to say this to you publicly, Mr. Paul. Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Marcus. Thank you for what you do, sharing stories. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible Mr. Paul, Bridgewise Saving Lives, signing off. Love you guys. Bye.